Kevin Thompson. Who's that?
What's up, KT?
Yo. He asked us if we could talk about the differences and difficulties of making kilts on a bias versus normal pleating.
Sure.
You might want to explain bias versus not bias.
Yeah. When you sew something on the bias, it means diagonal. So basically what he's referring to is taking a kilt, instead of the warp and weft being horizontal and vertical, it would be kind of a crisscross X type pattern. Oftentimes you'll see a tartan vest done on the bias, worn with a kilt. It's a very smart look. I've actually done a kilt for myself on the bias just to see what would happen. It was one of those, like, in my brain, I just had to see it exist. So it was an abomination to the Lord our God. It was horrible. I would not do it again. The thing that I actually ran into immediately, I did this probably 10 or 12 years ago.
Before I met you. I don't remember ever seeing it.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Okay. It was PV fabric. It was the Sutherland tartan. The two problems I had as a kilt maker, doing it were, number one, when you cut on the bias, when you cut a regular kilt out, you're just going straight along. So you have 8 yards, single width, right there. When you cut on the bias, you have to cut across the bolt of material, and you don't get nearly as many chunks out of it.
You have a lot of wastage.
So there's a lot of wastage. Well, no, you can do it across multiple times. So there's a little bit of wastage, but there is some, because then you have to square it off at the ends, and then you have to splice it a bunch of times. The kilt will have to be hemmed. And the thing I didn't think of, which my wife, who had been sewing much longer than I had, who told me it was a bad idea and I didn't believe her, what she pointed out to me was, fabric stretches on the bias.
Yes.
So when I went to sew the cloth, basically when you're sewing a kilt, you have to hold the fabric taut because you're sewing multiple layers together, and you want everything to match up perfectly. So when I was trying to sew it, you're holding it taut and you kind of tug back and make sure all the layers go underneath the pressing foot and the needle at the same speed. It was stretching. So it was kind of, it got a little bit bacony, a little bit wavy going in, depending on how hard I was pulling on it. I finally got to a comfort level with it where I was feeding it in reasonably slowly, so that didn't happen. The problem was when I took it out and went, so how does it stretch? And I popped a bunch of the stitches because I pulled on the stitches top and bottom because the fabric stretched, but the stitches didn't. So it was a learning curve. It was just something I did just to see what would happen. I got it done, and then, did I get the whole thing done? I either got the whole thing done and threw it out, or I got it 2/3 the way done and threw it out. It was an abomination. It should never see the light of day.
I've seen pictures of them, though. They do exist.
Yes, they do.
I think it's a hipster, what can we get the young guys to try that's new, because they're not as interested in traditional kilts.
Now,
that's in the UK. Again, like I said, they're very trend conscious. But
so if you took a kilt that was sewn and made on the bias and wore the kilt pin at a 45-degree angle,
it makes perfect sense.
It's now straight.
Makes perfect sense.
I'm not sure if I would hate and then unhate it because it kind of came back all the way around, or if I would doubly hate it. I think I would doubly hate it.
I think you would, knowing you, you would doubly hate it.
Yes.
And you wear the sporran off to the side.
Do you walk on an angle like you need your V8?
That helps.
Yes.
That helps. Yeah. Yeah. It's good for in a stadium environment because you're walking in the bleachers. You have 1 foot on one.
You walk along the curb?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah. It's some things should not exist. Kill it with fire.
Yeah. I'd be willing to bet you'll wind up seeing a little bit more of it, KT, as a fashion trend. But like other fashion trends we've seen over the years, it's not going to last.
Yeah,
it's just a little too out there.
It's out there.
To appeal to everybody.
And it's too difficult from a production standpoint. It's too difficult to do. It's a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
I really didn't like doing it at all.
Yeah. But on the bias works great for a vest. That, like you said, that is the best place you see on the bias cut.
And it gives a bit of a differentiation between the kilt and the vest. It doesn't look like it's all a jumper that a 3-year-old would wear, kind of thing. It's
right. Yeah, you know what has tartan on the bias? Billy skirts.
Yeah, yeah.
See it on women's.
That may be
billy
be
skirts.
part of my aversion. It's
I don't know.
yeah.
I think you look great in a billy skirt, but whatever.